Once again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages, you are now tuned in to the Investor Show. As always, this is your gracious host, the Prince of Investing, coming to you guys and girls live all the way from the beautiful city and state of Denver, Colorado. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, comment, and share button. And as always, I don't have a lot of time, and I definitely know you guys and girls don't have a lot of time, so we're going to jump straight into it. So right now, I'm live on my Facebook pages, which is the Investor Show, Prince Dykes NBA, all of the great stuff. So feel free if you're catching it live on Facebook to say hello. And also will be played back on our YouTube channel, The Investor Show, and it'll be uploaded. The audio experience will be uploaded to the podcast as well on The Investor Show, and we're on all major outlets from iHeartRadio to iTunes to you name it, we're probably there. Pandora, Spotify, all of the great stuff. So anyway, thank you guys and girls for tuning in. We got a great episode today. We're going to look at Hertz. Hertz the rental car place. Why do they file for bankruptcies and the lessons that I've learned? Why is this important? So many times when you're making your filter of what companies you want to invest in, when you're making your filter of who you want to invest in and who do you want to buy or whatnot, why do you have those filters? What are your filters? What are you looking for? And I'm going to tell you this. As you guys and girls will already know, I've been a military member for a long time, right? Not for a long time, but like 17 years. And the question is, when I came into the military at the age of 18 and 19 years old, and I first started off serving on submarines, shout out to all the bubbleheads and submariners out there, we will always go over these old lessons in sub school. We were all these submarines that had fallen and what happened in battle. And I used to sit there like, man, why are we looking at all this old stuff? But guess what? You can learn more in your failures than you can in your success. So I like to look at companies. It failed. Why did it fail? Let's take a look at his finances. Was his finances telling us something before the pandemic broke out? Let's look at the company before the pandemic broke out and to see is there some things I can take on board to shun me away from doing companies like this. So that's what I look at. What we're going to do today. We're going to look at this company. We're going to go through a good four. We're going to go through a good 4 or 5 reasons why Hertz has some red flags, and we're going to teach you, and I'm going to show you how I incorporate that into what I'm looking at today. And I'm going to go back. Over a month ago, I had somebody call in to the investor show and they asked about Hertz. They said, hey, I brought Hertz for, I think, uh, $2.30 and I was trading for $5. And they were saying, Prince, should I sell it? And I'm going to play that clip back to you to show you exactly what I said right here live on the investor show when somebody brought up Hertz to me over last month, right? In April, end of April. Yeah, towards the end of April. So about a month ago. So we're going to look at that, but let's first get into some of the people that's commenting live. Wayne Sutton said, I'm here, big bro. Appreciate it, Wayne. What's going on? Mish, what's going on? That's my guy, Mish. Miss Melanie, good afternoon. Prince. Okay, how you doing, Miss Melanie, down there in what you call it? Mish says some people just receive a blessing and can get the car they want. Yes, because they are selling a lot of cars now. They are getting rid of a lot of cars or whatnot. Melanie said old lessons in sub school sound so interesting to learn. Yes, I remember doing that. So in the military, this everybody. You always gotta learn the history because you gotta see the history. You gotta see the lessons. Why did Iran? Why was it such of a scandal? Why did Blockbuster go away? What if I rewind back a year ago? Could it have taught me a lesson? So that's what we're gonna do today. So thank y'all for tuning in live. But the first thing we're gonna look at, y'all always see Prince say, Prince, when you filter out companies, why did you pick this company? I always look at the top 2 companies in the industry. Hearst was not the top 2 companies in the history when it came down to market cap. So when I look at companies, I always look at the top 2 in the industry and compare them to each other, right? So when you look at it, Enterprise was the largest. Enterprise was the largest company, right? And then up under Enterprise, you had I think it was Avis, right? The only budget, the only not budget, but the only 2 companies that were um, publicly traded is Budget and Avis, right? So I had to compare those companies. So for prime example, Hertz was not in the top of the industry, wasn't the top in his sector. That's why I only look at the top. Prince, why does that make a difference? You see the likelihood of the big boy in the industry disappearing is very unlikely compared to the smaller guys. I always use this for example. Look at Apple. Apple is the number one. Apple and Microsoft are the top two in the technology sector. Now you look at a company that's very small. Those very small companies have a when times get hard, they have a high likelihood of disappearing. Why do people end up in those companies? Being cheap, because they're cheap. People are like, oh, I want to get Hertz because it's $5. I want to get Fords because it's $4. And you'll slowly realize why they are $5 or $4. Ask me, I learned the hard way. I used to look at companies, man, that's too expensive. That's too expensive. I don't want Apple, man. That thing's $300. Let me get this new technology company for $5. And then when the hard time comes, guess what? That $5 company is probably going to disappear and file bankruptcy. While that big company like Apple, it'll drop about 20, 30%. It may drop 20%, but guess what? Look at Apple now, back over $300. Look at Microsoft now, back over $300. Right? Now, what I'm going to do for you, ladies and gentlemen, this is what you call it. This is what I'm gonna play for you guys, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna play for you guys and girls when somebody called in and asked me about this particular company. Here it is. This was played on April. I look crazy in this video, but I'm gonna play for you guys. I want you guys and girls to hopefully y'all can listen. Let me make sure I got my sound hooked up. I'm gonna play a month ago. Somebody called in and asked about Avis, right? So let's see if we can play this for you guys and girls. Here we go. On Hertz and on Flight. This is how I look at it. Hertz is tied to the airline industry. But the airline industry got a bailout. Hertz didn't. Right? Now, the government is taking care of them until September. Why, if I'm investing, why do I want to jump on the struggle bus? Hertz is on the struggle bus. Yeah. They don't know what's going on. Play, Dave and Buster, you don't know when it's going to open. Well, look at Google. Google was not, none of its revenue streams have been affected at all. Right? Mm-hmm. In actuality, their revenue streams have gone up. You know what I mean? In Q1. So when I'm looking at investing, I'm looking at a calculated risk. And if you own the struggle bus, I know you probably heard me say this a bunch, but if I'm coming over there struggling, and I'm trying to, if you're in Florida and you're trying to get a ride, why would you jump on a train that is missing a wheel? You don't know if it's going to get back on the track and it's kind of struggling and whatnot. You know what? When you get it together, then I will look at investing into it. But until then, no. That's why I don't invest in startups, because everybody has a master. All right. So y'all pretty much got the gist of it, right? Somebody called in and asked me, "Hey, Prince, what do you think about Hertz?" Right? And did I? Hopefully, y'all play it again. But somebody called into the show and asked me about Hertz, right? And that was me giving my thought process on Hertz. Pretty much what I was saying was, I could play it again, but hey, when I look at a company, the company was already struggling. I said, why would I want to get on a company that's struggling, on the verge of not getting a bailout, not being able to make it? I didn't get into airlines. I got Southwest Airlines once I figured out they got a bailout from the government. Once they got a bailout from the government, I said, oh, they got $3 billion from the government and they only have to pay back $900 million. Boom, I brought it. Once they got it figured out. When they were going down and sinking and people didn't know what was going to happen to them, then I got into it. Right now, look at Southwest Airlines today. Got it for about $25. It's probably about a 10, 11% return on investment so far. But it was a calculated risk. With Hertz, for example, it was struggling already. Nobody didn't know if it was going to make it. It wasn't number one in its industry. Why would I take that opportunity, that chance? So essentially, that was what I was saying in that situation. It wasn't the top one in the industry. We didn't know if it was going to make it. We didn't know if it was going to get a bailout. Now before I get to number two, we're going to talk about it. Wayne says, this is why I like Nokia. It looks like they may have learned from their past mistakes. Okay. Hopefully you're gonna take a lesson on this too, Wayne. Hopefully you can, by the end of this episode, I want you to tell me what you think about Nokia. Melanie said, I had someone tell me they brought 4 stocks. I asked them why. Most people buy stocks because they're cheap and they pay the dividend. I had 4 stocks years ago. I had it. It was paying a nice dividend. It was a cheap stock that was paying dividends. I liked it. But then I started, so it was going down. The fundamentals was not adding up. I said, well, why is the stock market going up? The whole market, everybody just running up, but my company is stagnating and going down. Guess what I decided to do? I decided to get off that bus, right? I had to put forward on the struggle bus. But some people, they get so locked into the dividends, they get those quarterly nice dividends that they forget about the fundamentals of the company, right? Melanie said the sound is low, Prince. Sorry about that. I was trying to play it. Hopefully, y'all heard some of it, but it pretty much was a guy calling in and he asked me about Hertz about a month ago. He was asking me, Prince, I brought it, should I sell it or whatnot? And I pretty much told him, hey, man, if I'm investing right now, there are plenty of companies like Apple and Google and Microsoft that are great companies on sale. Why do I want to jump on the struggle company? Because it's cheap, because it's $5. You pay for what you get. Tell you guys a quick story. I had a friend one time ask me for money. I hope you're tuning in right now, but we're still friends to this day. This was like 15 years ago. And he needed money and he couldn't, and we were young, we was like 18, 19, maybe 20. He turned around and said, Prince, can I borrow some money, right? He didn't have the money. He couldn't go to the bank. The bank wouldn't lend him the money. So he was in a pretty bad situation. I didn't have the cash either, but I had good credit. And I said, hey, why you just can't go to the bank and borrow? He said, well, the bank declined me. So I said, okay, well, cool. This is what I do. Went to the bank, borrowed the money from him, borrowed the money from the bank, took out the loan, gave him the money or whatnot. Now he's paying me back. About every 2 months, he would have situations. Prince, I need to get new tires. Prince, I had this. Long story short, I figured out why he had bad credit, right? I figured out the hard way of why he had bad credit because he had a problem with paying people back, right? So a lot of times when you see people looking for things and wanting things, it's because they are in a bad situation and in a bad situation for a reason. And you'll slowly figure that out. She said, I don't know a lot about Ford, but it was not a great choice. Yes, over time, like for prime example, companies that I'm buying now, um, and if the picture doesn't look right in the future, you get out of it. So long story short, it was not the number one guy in the industry. Number two, negative cash flow. Negative cash flow. Hertz was an unprofitable, losing company, a negative cash flow. Simple and easy, guys. If you make $10 and do you spend $12, negative cash flow. Negative cash flow. That was the number two thing. Number two thing was they had a negative cash flow. Number three, unprofitable. Hertz wasn't even profitable in the last 1 to 2, 3 years. So it's an unprofitable company. So if I was looking to invest in a company, it was unprofitable. You're right. Like right now, Uber is an unprofitable company. Uber right now cannot afford to be hit by something like that. But Uber has 3 sources of revenue. It had Uber Eats, it has Uber Freights, and it also has Uber Rides. As people stop riding, you will notice last quarter Uber Eats excelled, right? So even though right now Uber is very risky because it's an unprofitable company, and if something hits an unprofitable company, that's when it's time to go ka-clunk. When you're looking at how much cash they got on hand, how much debt they got on hand, things like that. Number three, Hertz was unprofitable. So as soon as a hard time comes, it was already on the struggle bus anyway. It already had a negative cash flow anyway. It was already unprofitable. This is by looking at the balance sheets of 2019. Before the pandemic even broke out, it was already unprofitable with a negative cash flow. Right? Number four, debt. Right here, Hertz had a total assets of 24 billion. They had total debt of 17 billion. Right? Their revenue, they only brought in $9 billion a year. They brought in $9 billion in 2019. They brought in $9 billion in 2019, but they had $17 billion in debt. Y'all ready for something else? The net income. The net income was a negative 50 million in 2019. Hertz lost $50 million last year when the stock market was booming. So you was already a loser in the beginning. You was losing a negative last year after they paid all their bills. They brought in a total revenue of $50 million, $9 billion. After they got through paying all their bills, they had a negative $50 million net income, and then they had 17 billion in assets. I'm not in assets, but in debt. So with that much debt on a losing company, you are ripe for something just to take you out of your misery. So Prince, what does that mean? That's why I look at a company's net income. That's why I look at a company's debt. That's why I want to know if you're the big boy in the industry. You guys, girls, see what I'm coming from on that? So let's go what Wayne has to say. Wayne says, I haven't scratched the surface. I'm thinking he's talking about on Nokia as surface as far as dividends. Also, remember when Facebook and Amazon were super low, I've been investigating, like you said. Nokia has a positive net cash, nice, on hand, but I just started investigating, so I'm listening to every time you post. All right, now let's go right here. Let me show you how to investigate. Ready for it, Wayne? This is number 5. This is how I look at everybody. Number 5, how's your competition? The competition. How is your competition performing? How is the competition performing? You go look into Nokia. You find out who is the biggest guy in the Nokia world. Who are the top big players in the Nokia world? You look at them. How are they performing? How is Nokia performing? Let's take this situation of, we're going to take the same exact situation of Hertz, and we're going to compare them to Avis, right? Let's take a look at Avis. How did Avis do in 2019? While Hertz had a negative net income, it had a bunch of debt. How are they performing? Don't worry about it. I did a little research. First of all, total assets, 23 billion versus Hertz had 24 billion. They had about the same amount of assets. You look at the debt. Hertz has 17 billion in debt. How much did Avis have? 3 billion. Why does Avis have so much less debt? Okay, let's keep looking a little bit more. Total liabilities. Total liabilities for Hertz, 22 billion. Total liabilities for Avis, 8.5 billion. So you have a third of the debt they have. Well, not a third. You have way less debt. I didn't do the math on it. You have way less debt. Then you have way less liabilities. Now, when you subtract the assets from the liabilities, you come up with a net worth for Hertz of 2 billion. But Avis has 15 billion. Okay. Let's look at their revenue. Their revenue was tied. How much their total revenue? 9 billion. Hertz made about 9 billion. So did Avis, made 9 billion. But it's not about how much you bring in, it's how much you keep. Once Hertz got through paying all of his bills, it was left with a negative 50 million net income. How much did Avis have? A positive 302 million. Now I gotta look at it. Hertz for the Avis for the last 3 years has had a positive net income. Why Hertz has had a negative income, net income? Why does he have so much debt? Why do you have so much debt? Why do you have so much debt? Why your operating expenses are so high? Why is your net income so low in the negative? Guess what I started to do? I started to realize when I look at these two companies, I see why this company is Don't ever get tied up into looking at one company, because if I look at one company, if I'm not comparing you to anybody, then what? What is it? Look at me, myself, right? I don't go and compare myself to an investor back in, no offense to my hometown. I don't compare myself to the lowest guy on the totem pole, right? I compare myself to the best in the world. What is Warren Buffett doing? I need to meet Warren Buffett. How does Warren Buffett speak? I need to read his books. How does he look at the world? Compare yourself to the best. So Wayne asked the question of comparing yourself. Look at the people who are the best, right? So Melanie asked the question, she said, how is Enterprise doing, Prince? Enterprise is a privately held company. It's not publicly traded. It's the largest, but it's privately held. I haven't heard anything about Enterprise going down, having problems, or whatever the case may be. But if you do your research, ladies and gentlemen, you will see, and you do your research, you will see that in 2019, before the COVID-19 even struck into play, this company was already struggling. It was not the top in the industry. Not the top in the industry. Negative cash flow. It was unprofitable. A large amount of debt, with AVs beating it in every other category. That right there would have told me, if I was looking to invest into the rental car space, I'd have automatically looked at Avis, automatically, because I looked at it and said, if y'all in the same space and y'all pretty much do the same thing, why are you struggling so much? Versus your competitors, or their finances are looking way better. Now, do I know a whole lot about the car industry and the rent? No, not really. I'm just looking at the finances. I'm looking at the balance sheet, income statement, and all these other companies, right? Now, Wayne just said Nokia. Now, when you look at the finances of Nokia, also compare the finances to all these other companies you just made, Qualcomm. I'm almost certain Qualcomm is profitable, right? Then I'm going to look at it and say, what are your revenue streams? Why are you making it and everybody else is struggling? Do you have some type of competitive advantage to everybody else? Learn this lesson from Hertz. Hertz, for prime example, if you look back at the data on 2019, you probably wouldn't have made that investment, right? Melanie says, I asked about enterprise because in my community, there are one on every corner, on every busy intersection. They have been booming business wise. Yes, they are number one. Enterprise is number one, but it's not a publicly traded company. It's a privately held company, meaning that I can't look into its finances because it's not public. The only public ones were like Hertz. The big ones was Hertz and Budget. Now you got Expedia, Travel, but they don't focus just on rental cars. They got all these other things. They sell Expedia, sell plane tickets and all of the good stuff like that. I wanted somebody who was right next to you, who is doing the exact same thing. How are you performing? Yes, I can read McDonald's. When you look at Nokia compared to the number one people in that industry, right? That's what I was looking at. That's what you can look at doing, right? Let's take a look at, okay, what Wayne had to say. He said, I like the 5G relationship Nokia has. Also, Microsoft back phone deal that went bad. I'm big on Nokia, as you can see. No problem, no problem. If you know more about it, guess what? If you got a competitive advantage, you're good. Somebody asked a question: will Nike recover? I can't speak off the top of my head about Nike. I haven't looked into Nike, but in the long run, I will take a bet on Nike just from the outside eye looking in. I haven't looked down into them because they're the number one shoe brand in the world. They have like one of the top 10 to 5 brands in the world, one of the top 10 to 5 brands in the world. Look at their competition. Under Armour is probably out there. Who else is out there? Adidas, maybe. How are they comparing? How is that entire sector performing? That's what I like to look at. Look at the entire sector. Is everybody down in that sector? Are you the best one in that sector? Let's take a look at an Uber, for example. You got to compare Uber. I just can't read Uber's numbers. I got to compare Uber to Lyft. Then I got to compare Uber to Lyft. Then I got to look at the whole sector. So before I look at Nokia, who else is in that space? Who is their competition? Not only who else is their competition, who's the big boy in that space or the big girl in that space? Oh, this is the big company. What are they doing in this? How is the sector performing? How is this particular company performing? I would assume that Nokia falls up on the communications, which is XLC. I will look at how that sector performing in general before I look at the particular companies. You know, he said, Wayne said, I heard you hate Aurora Cannabis. Too risky, man. This is how I look at it. Not that I hate the particular company. I look at the entire sector. I feel as though this entire sector of um, the entire sector of marijuana still has a lot of figuring out to do. Right now, if I raffle off some companies, you'll probably name the top companies. If I say who's the top fast food company, you'll probably say McDonald's. Who's the top Grocery store company, you probably say Walmart, right? Who's the top shoe company? You probably say Nike. Who's the top drink? Probably say Coca-Cola company, right? Probably say Coca-Cola. But when it comes down to marijuana, I don't know. I don't know who's the top one, two, three, four. I don't know who's going to be what. Half of these companies, majority of those marijuana companies are going to disappear over time. Those companies in that marijuana industry, their head will rise. Whoever's the top guy or girl is going to rise eventually. And when that happens, then I can make a better assessment. Right now, there's just too many companies out there. The risk. It's a higher risk, right? It's just like when I looked at the airline industry. I said, airline industry is going down. How can I invest into the airline industry? Let's look at the entire airline industry. Okay, well, who are the big guys? Southwest, Delta. Okay, got it. Well, let's compare Southwest to Delta. Ooh, I think I like Southwest finances a little bit stronger. I'm going to now let's wait to see if the government is going to bail them out. Boom, the government bailed them out. I saw the conditions of the bailout. You know what? I can take a risk on Southwest Airlines. That's just my simplistic way of investing at 35 at this age. Comparison shopping, yes, Prince, exactly. You can't just look at a company and say, "Oh man, look, man, this thing look good." Then you'll be surprised if you turn your head around the corner. You'll be like, "Wow, I thought they were doing good, but somebody over here is doing great." Those are the things you got to look at, right? You know. So those are things you got to look at when you look at the world of investing. You have to look at comparison company. Now, I'm teaching you guys and girls, this is not anything about this is advice, telling you what to buy or recommendation. This is just giving you my thought process, financial literacy show, looking at the finances. You got to go through the finances and compare one company to another company. I can't compare Microsoft to Nokia, or I can't compare Microsoft to Coca-Cola, or Coca-Cola. I mean, you can Coca-Cola to Walmart. I have to look inside of that space. I just did an episode on cybersecurity. I had to compare everybody who was in cybersecurity to cybersecurity, right? And you guys can see why I have the filters that I have. Why do I go to the biggest companies? Why do I care if you're profitable? Why do I care if you have debt? Right? Why do I care if you have a positive cash flow? Why do I care how much cash you got on hand? Because I don't know what the future may bring, but I know companies that are set financially, who are pretty sturdy financially, who have low debt with a high pile of cash, aka Facebook. That means that when a downturn in their sector comes, they have a high likelihood of making it through. Right? But anyway, guys and girls, Wayne said the cannabis industry is new. Remember when alcohol was legal? I'm so grateful to even be having a conversation with you guys. No, you're right. Alcohol is new. But right now, when a sector comes out that is new, there's 1,000 companies. How can I pick the next Coca-Cola out of 1,000 companies? I don't know. But it's like anything else with competition. How do some people make it to the NBA? How do some people become the best players in the NBA? Because what they say about the cream, what happens to the cream? It always rises to the top. So if you're patient and you wait, as this new industry, right now the industry looks like this. It's a circle with a bunch of people in it. But guess what's going to happen? It's going to slowly turn into a triangle. And what do you mean by turn into a triangle? It's going to turn to a triangle where people are going to be at the top of that industry. Happens every time. Every industry, when you look at fast food, when you look at restaurants, when you look at the clothing lines, when you look at Facebook, look at YouTube, look at radio shows, the cream will rise to the top every single time. So guess what? In there right now, it's a bunch of people in that space. If I make an investment now, it's very risky. But if I wait, then I can look at the companies that are on the top. Who are the top three, four, five companies? Are they profitable? Are they making money? So if you're patient and you wait and let the industry form it, now right now you can make an investment and buy a bunch of them, but that's extremely risky. I'm going to wait to see how the industry formulates. Once it formulates and I see who the big guys are in the industry, the big girls in the industry, then I'll make an investment. I've done that before. You don't want to jump on the wrong horse. Right race, wrong horse. That can happen. Prince, what do you mean by that? You could be like, man, I believe in the marijuana industry, but you could jump on the wrong horse. It could not be, it could be Aurora cannabis, or it could not be Aurora cannabis, right? So I wait until things formulate, you know? Oh, that's my guy. Andy said that's great advice. Yes, you wait until I got to send you a message too, and you're gonna get a good laugh. But that's why I look at this. You know what I mean? So when I look at the world of investing in general, if you sit back and wait, I've done that. I picked the right company and I picked the right sector and got on the wrong horse. Now you could jump on Aurora Cannabis and it could be some new cannabis company coming out of Texas that can take over the industry. And you're like, man, I'm on the wrong horse. But if you had just waited, that horse is going to reveal itself over time. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to conclude today's episode. I thank you guys for tuning in. To give a recap of what we talked about today, we looked at Hertz, and we compared it to Avis. Avis is the number one company, publicly traded company in the rental car space. Enterprise is the number one company, but it's a privately held company. So the thing about it, we learned about Hertz. Hertz was not the top in the industry. It was not the biggest company in the industry. Sometimes being big gives you a competitive advantage. For prime example, I can't compare to CBS because CBS is just a huge monstrous company, right? So sometimes being big just gives you a competitive advantage. Like going into a wrestling match, if you weigh 300 pounds and your opponent weighs 150, you got a competitive advantage just for being big. You don't have to have that many skills, but just by being big, you have a competitive advantage. That's why I look at companies who are the big boys in this particular space. Number two, negative cash flow. Hertz had a negative cash flow before COVID-19 struck. So if you did your research back in 2019, you'd have noticed this company has a negative cash flow. Number three, it was an unprofitable company before the pandemic struck. So 2019, they had a hard time turning a profit. They lost $50 million last year before COVID-19 came in. COVID-19 just pretty much came in and took off its took it out of his misery. Number four, debt. It had a large amount of debt, $17 billion in debt compared to $24 billion in asset. So now you're a company that's netting a loss with a huge amount of debt, right? You're ripe for something to come along. Number five, the competition. I compared it to Avis and I realized that why is Avis, they don't have as much debt. Why are they turning a profit? Why do they have a positive cash flow? Why is Hertz struggling? So when I compare companies, this is the way you got to look at it, the competition. So anyway, guys and girls, I hope you guys and girls enjoyed. And Miss LaShonda, thank you for tuning in, Miss LaShawn. But I hope you guys and girls enjoyed. Get the replay here on Facebook, also on YouTube, and also on the podcast, The Investor Show, and on LinkedIn as well. Um, thank you guys. Appreciate you guys. Until the next video, podcast, cartoon, or whatever else crazy you see me around the globe. My name is Prince Dykes. This is The Investor Show. Peace, be safe. I'm out, and thank you.